If you are an estate agent, letting agent, or someone who is interested in the property market, then this, the weekly UK property market stat show, is for you. My name is Chris Watkin, and each week I have a special guest. This week it's Verona Frankish. We'll come to Verona in a second. The purpose of this show is to look at what's happening in the property market right here, right now. Indices like the Nationwide and the Halifax looking at sales that were agreed a couple of months ago. The Land Registry is looking at sales that were agreed probably 6-9 months ago. We're looking at what happened last week. And by looking at what's coming on the market, which is the supply of properties, what's being reduced and what's selling, we can get a good idea of what's happening to the property market right now, and also through using other data, foretell what's going to happen to those sort of indices that you mentioned in 3, 6, 9 months' time. Today, I'm joined by Verona Frankish. She is the boss lady of YOPA, who is one of the biggest UK estate agency brands in the UK. What she doesn't know about estate agency isn't worth knowing, because at the end of the day, she knows her onions. Verona, thanks for joining me today. Whereabouts is YOPA?
Pleasure.
Whereabouts in YOPA? What number are you now? Because you're doing really well at the moment, aren't you?
We finished 2023 sixth biggest in the UK.
You can't grumble at that. So, ladies and gentlemen, you can see she certainly does know her stuff. So, for those of you who have not watched the show before, the show is basically in 2 parts. The first part looks at the national statistics, and the second part is we focus on a town or a city and really deep dive and look at the property market in that town or city. Now, whether you are actually an agent from that town or not, I'd certainly recommend you look at it, because the data that we use is using a piece of software that is available free of charge to estate agents. You can pay for it if you want the extras on it, like most things in life. But you can actually get this bit of data, and it shows whether you're a good estate agent or not, and prove that you can get more valuations. It will get you more valuations, and it will get you more sales and higher fees. So, and that this week is on the beautiful city of Salisbury. I believe it has a nice spire there. I think our friends from the East do like to go and visit there every once in a while, I believe. But anyway, not in the pun. It is a beautiful city. It's got a lovely feel to it. Have you ever been yourself, Verona?
Do you know, I haven't. I was just thinking that when you said it. I think it's quite famous for its cathedral, isn't it? But no, I've not been. I should put it on my list.
Indeed, indeed. Anyway, less of this banter and let's dive in and have a look at the stats. So as always, we start off with the listing. So I'll just whiz through these numbers and then we'll go to Verona and ask her thoughts. And we, ladies and gentlemen, we are looking at week 6 of 2024. Now we will be comparing week 6 compared to the other week 6s, going back to 2017. And just so you're aware, week 6 is Monday, the 5th of February, all the way through until Sunday, the 11th of February. And that is week 6 of 2024. So this week, in terms of properties on the market, we have put 35,578 properties on the market for sale at an average asking price of £122,000. Year to date, we are on 187,000 properties, 370 that have come onto the market. And Verona will go through what that means in terms of compared to other towns, other years. And we have on the graph now the weekly figures compared to 17, 18, 19 and 23 in terms of listings. Okay, scores on the doors. What's your thoughts on this one, Verona, in terms of listings?
Yeah, well, I think it's fair to say, Chris, that the year has started off reasonably well. I think momentum appears to be building. We got out of the blocks pretty well in January. I think we sort of plateaued a little bit mid-January, but then February has started well. So from a listings point of view, I think we're in pretty good shape as an industry. And I suppose that would give us an indicator that following the seasonal period at the end of last year, which was quite slow, which we'd expect at the end of the year that we've had, but also our normal seasonality. The customers have kind of reset their expectations, and also there's a bit of customer sentiment, positive customer sentiment returning, which is great because we're also seeing, as we'll come to, some strong indicators in sales as well. So it would appear that customers are feeling we've reached the bottom as far as price points are concerned. I suppose my only call out at this point in terms of listings, which we will definitely come to talk about, is the price point that we are listing properties at across the country at the minute. So that's my only kind of call out, and therefore the impact of our ability to sell those, which is of course the customer's primary need. So yeah, I'm sure we'll come to talk about that.
Indeed. I mean, just to give you an idea, listings last week was, let's just pull that up. Hold on a second. Listings last week was 34,947. So I think that's just under 2%, just working some rough figures out on that one. Interestingly, gross sales and net sales, which we'll come on to in a second, are almost identical. And when I say almost identical, they are almost identical.
Yeah.
So that's particularly interesting. And again, comparing it with other years, you can see on the graph here that, you know, very, very similar years.
Very similar to 2019. And 2019 is the year that we talk about on a regular basis as being the last sort of normal, if there is such thing in our world. Yeah, so, you know, to be akin to that is positive, I think. And you know what, Chris, there's still a lot of flux in the market, and not just housing, but clearly in the mortgage market. And there is still some question marks about where interest rates are going. And only this week, some of the banks are giving confusing messages because Nationwide have increased some of their product rates. Santander have reduced their product rates. And I think the banks need a little bit of clarity in terms of where the base rate is going. And all of these factors are clearly well publicized and reported upon. So they're giving slightly confusing messages to consumers. So considering all of that backdrop, I feel pretty positive about how we've started 2024.
And my advice to anyone watching this is it's all very good looking at the headlines saying one's putting up and one's putting them down, but actually speak with your mortgage ranger, because who knows,
Absolutely.
if Santander were, should we say, not particularly brilliant at their rates and now they've dropped them, that sounds good, but in reality they weren't getting any mortgages. Whilst Nationwide might, if it was the other way around, might have been the cheapest chips, and probably just, and again, if you talk to the mortgage rangers, if they're bringing too much business in, they will put the price up because they just don't want any more business because their mortgage units don't have the capacity. So it's not because they think interest rates are going up, they just don't want any more business coming in.
The challenge with that, though, the challenge is from a consumer point of view, there will be rewriting of products required. There will be repricing of products. There'll be products pulled at the last minute, which does then cause problems within chains. So it's about, absolutely, your point is totally spot on about educating yourselves. There has never been, for an estate agent, a more important time to educate yourself about what's happening in the mortgage market to help steer your customers as well.
I mean, I find it fascinating. You know, we are considered the property gurus, but if we don't actually know what's happening in the property market, and the mortgage market is part of the property market, you know, you do have to educate yourself, because if you don't, then I'm sorry, you just glorified double glazing salesmen and women. You are considered property experts, so be that expert.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, let's now move on and look at price changes. And this week, the number of price changes is 18,810, with an average price of £390,000. That's the average price of a property that was reduced last week. Its original asking price before it got reduced was 390, which is just probably about 8 or 9%, 5% below the average asking price of the ones that are coming on the market, which, as we said, was 422. With 18,810 and the number of properties that are currently on the market, which I'll just pull up in a second. Hold on a second. I'm just pulling it up now. Hold on. Why is it? You know, hold on. Who else?
It's about 510,000 from memory.
Okay, hold on. Well done. At the moment, yeah, 510,000. Well done. There you go. Well done. Well remembered on that. That is working. That is working out at around 1 in 8 properties that are being reduced on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
question I always ask my guests, and just for your benefit, ladies and gentlemen, the guests do rotate. So Verona comes on every about 6 or 7 or 8 weeks, and we rotate round with different awesomenesses that come on. Is that enough?
Yeah, I mean, I have to be honest, Chris, this is the one that probably both the price at listing and the number of price changes is probably the two biggest red flags for me at the minute. And I don't think it's particularly a major concern at this juncture, but I think we're starting to see a bit of a creep in terms of the prices the properties are listing at, the prices that they're selling at, or the prices of properties that are selling. Not the same thing, exactly this graph. And for me, this is too, the gap is too big. The delta is too big on this right now. I'd like to see this a bit closer. And it's starting to creep up exactly that. So that gap between listing price and sale agreed price is starting to creep up. And for me, that's a concern. I think there's I said at the start that customer sentiment is starting to get their heads around the fact that prices are no longer dropping. But I also feel that there's still a number of properties on the market that need a more honest conversation. So there's two conversations here. It's the honesty at the point of listing. And of course, we have to buy customers in to explain to them, bring them on the journey, explain our expertise, as we were talking about, show the comparables, demonstrate your expertise in the area, understand what's going on in the mortgage market, and all of these things and how they come together to create what the market value is for that property. So getting that right in the first instance, there is so much evidence to support the fact if we don't get that right in the first instance, we diminish our ability to sell the property at all. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is having that ongoing, we sound like broken records when we talk about this, but having that ongoing conversations with customers, agreeing when you're going to come back to them and get them on board early days that we might need to look at price further down the line, but actually getting that price as close to accurate as you can at the point of listing generates the most interest and will ultimately give them the best price whenever we complete on that property. So the pricing of properties now, both the listing price and also the volume of price changes, I think 1 in 8 in the current market is probably not enough. And of course, there's going to be regional variances on that. There's also going to be price bracket variances on that. So your ability to, not your ability per se, but the need to come back and change prices on a 3-bed semi at 250k versus a property that's on the market at 650k is very different. So you might have to do 3 price changes on a 650k. You might never have to do 1 on the 350. So the problem with averages, right, is there's going to be a wide range across regions, across price brackets.
I mean, it's particularly interesting. We haven't got we don't look at the regional figures on the show, but I do have access to them, and probably a decent chunk of that gap between the average listing price and the average sale price is in London. That gap at the moment, it's 20% nationally. But if you were to take inner London, and when I say inner London, we're looking at the SW, SE, N, NW, and E postcodes with the 2 central ones as well.
Yeah.
That really does screw that figure up and bumps probably out of it's 20% difference. That bumps that up by about 8%. If you look at, because outer London is normally around 5 or 6% because it's all suburban semi. So as you're right, you can't get one of them wrong. If you if you put on a 3-bedroom semi at 750 and then you go and put it on at 850, it sticks out like a sore thumb. But in London, it doesn't.
Yeah, exactly.
And then as you go out into the regions, as I said, it's looking around 10 or 15%, depending on where you are in the country. So you're absolutely right. Let's go now and look at sale agreeds. Okay, so this week we have sale agreed 24,954. Sorry, let me phrase that. 24,954. I did say it right. Last week it was 24,945. Almost identical, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. The average price of a property sale agreed this week, £350,000. Let's just remind ourselves, ladies and gentlemen, The average price of a property coming on the market, 422. The average price of a property selling, 350. Okay, there's a 20% difference. That's not to say the houses dropped 20%. It's what's coming on market now. So
Yeah.
the technical thing is that the lower price properties have a higher propensity to sell. Now,
Yeah.
interestingly, Ian White said last week in the show that he believes that the higher price, apart from the silly stuff at 20 million, he believes the posh one, the high price properties, because there aren't so many of them around and are much more harder to sell, estate agents get a bit carried away and therefore they overvalue them. That's why they don't sell. Different people have different opinions on that.
I actually did listen to that, and I thought that was an interesting perspective for me. And I think that there's an element of is it that they overvalue because the consumer is, which was Ian's point, the consumer has an inflated view of the value of their property, and therefore they don't want to challenge that customer because they're more interested in listing the property, or is it that they don't sell enough of them on a regular basis and therefore don't have the confidence to challenge with their expertise, with the comparables in that area, and with confident knowledge of their space. So I'm sure there's a number of those factors at play.
I would actually say it's both.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, I find it fascinating that if you ask an estate agent, what does your property sell for on a pound per square foot basis? They probably don't even know what a square foot looks like. And I do say that with total respect and humbleness, but guys,
it's not a metric that they're used to dealing with. I think in the new build space, that's much more common metric to use, but in the second-hand space, that's probably less used, and therefore, that's not to say they couldn't if it was something that they were passionate about. And as always, we talk about using more data to demonstrate your expertise. That would be a brilliant and pretty straightforward one to be able to dazzle your sellers with.
Just to make you aware, ladies and gentlemen, how do you do it? Well, every property has an EPC. So you go to the EPC and it shows you what the square meterage of that property is. You can do the asking price and you divide one by the other. That gives you the pound per square meter. If you're working in meters, it's fine. If you want to get it in pound per square foot, just divide that figure by 10.76, and that's your pound per square foot figure. That is how you do it. And it really does, we're not talking A-level maths here. It's just nice, simple maths, but it will make you stand out like a sore.
Absolutely.
And there are reports
Absolutely.
out there, Sprift and other data sources that you can find this information out on properties. In fact, if you go to Zoopla, quite often the size of the property is in the details. So as a data field. So again, just bear that in mind. It makes you look awesome. And again, as an estate agent, you need to stand out. You need to be different. And there's
everything is marginal gains. It's all the little things that add together that create trust. And that's so important.
Indeed. Right. So this week, as I said, we have sold 24,954 with an average asking price of sale agreed at 350. Year to date, we're on 124,426 gross sales year to date compared to last year where we were 112,900. And if you compare us with the years of 17, 18 or 19, we are doing really, really well. And we are again ahead of the curve on that. Interestingly, gross sales, 124,500, almost identical. That was 2020.
Which is hilarious given the year that 2020 was, right? Because at this point in 2020,
it's just a Boris bounce. Can you remember?
We have, yeah, exactly. And we didn't even have we hadn't even had COVID at this point because it was 17th of March. But then the year just went completely topsy-turvy. So it's incredible that we're pretty much identical in terms of this year. Isn't it funny?
Indeed. And there's just a graph there just showing the graph on the screen now. And again, anyone listening to this on the podcast, you can download the graphs so you can watch the graphs. Also on the podcast, there's a link to the YouTube as well. But the white line is 2024 for gross sales. And you can quite clearly see we are well ahead of the pink line of 23 and also well ahead of 17, 18 and 19, which, as most people would say, are more normal years. Right, let's move on. We've done those graphs there. We're going to now go through to fall throughs. So this week, in terms of fall throughs, we are on 5,034. which compared to, let's just pull up the stats. Last week we were on, hold the line caller, here we go. Last week we were on 5,131, the week before 4,8, and the week before that 5,000, almost on the nose. But again, I think a better metric is the percentage. That's the
Correct. Yeah.
sale fall through rate. And again, ladies and gentlemen, the sale fall through rate is in a standalone week. How many gross sales have you got? How many fall throughs have you had? And the fall throughs as a percentage of gross sales. Okay. And this week we're on 20.17. If you can see the graph there, apart from those Christmas uplifts, which again, just because of such low numbers, the numbers go all over the place. You can see that there's a steady trend which started in the summer of 2023, where we were having fall through rates at 30%. And now, as I said, the trend is now down. And with the last couple of weeks, it's been 20.3, 20.6, and now 20.17. That's good.
Yeah, that's really, really encouraging. That's a really encouraging trend. As with all of this data, it's really important to see it over a longer period of time, particularly something like this. But really, really encouraging trend. And I guess what's interesting, I think, about the market at the minute is there's clearly a bit of a balance. The power shift is changing slightly from a seller's market to more of a buyer's market. And I just wonder how that trend will continue throughout this year. And of course, what we don't know at this point, early March, we're going to have the spring budget, of course. And what we don't know is what housing stimulus the government is going to throw at the market as a last-ditch attempt of staying in government. And so I think it's going to be really interesting to see how that sort of power shift is going to impact fall-through rates, and also how mortgage activity, mortgage rates is also going to impact that, because inevitably that will be hiding a lot of rewrites, a lot of product changes, switches, overvaluations, a lot of cases, etc. So yeah, I think this year that rate, if we can continue to keep that level of downward trend, that would be really positive.
I mean, interestingly, you talk about whether it's a buyer's or seller's market, and I just thought this might be of interest to you. I know you know this, but some of the people watching don't. But each week,
this is a great graph.
I create my daytime job is not doing stats like this, and my daytime job is not interviewing people on the sofa. My daytime job is I'm a ghostwriter writing articles about property markets. And this particular example is on Grantham because I work hyper local. And this apart from certain parts of London, what I'm showing you on the screen now is almost identical. Some cities are slightly higher, some are slightly lower, but fundamentally, you can see here that if you actually want to work out, ladies and gentlemen, what is a buyer's market and what is a seller's market, the first thing that you do is go onto Rightmove, other portals are available, and to your town and go include sole subject to contract. So in Grantham, let's just say there are, including sole subject to contract, 500 properties on whatever your sphere of is, 500, okay? What you then do is untick the box, and that will give you all the availables. So therefore, if you untick that box, it will take the 500, say, down to 300, okay? Meaning there's 200 that are sold subject to contract. And the percentage is the 200 sold versus the 500, okay? Okay, and that is the percentage that you're working on, okay? And this is your percentage. So therefore, 71% of the properties in Grantham back in June 21 were sale agreed, okay? And at the moment we've dipped into a seller's market, and now we're dipping down into more of a balanced market. And when she goes under 30, that's when it goes more into a buyer's market. So if you do it on a regular basis, ladies and gentlemen, you can give a flavour. And not only can you do it on your town, my recommendation would be to actually do it in different, so detached.
On your postcodes. Yeah, exactly.
Also, so you keep
property types.
So if you've got so you keep an eye that there's a lot more terraces coming on the market but they're not selling versus semis that are selling, so you know where to focus your attention. I don't know if you've, again, all good stuff.
But Chris, do you know that just on that point, we talk about on a regular basis what's going to differentiate you from the competition. And it's exactly that kind of data, along with your level of expertise and being able to be confident in the properties that you're talking to your vendor about. All of those little things make a massive difference.
Because homeowners are obsessed about the value of their own property. So talk about the local property market. It's all very good hitting the word share from something from the Halifax, but talk about local property market. And what I would say to you is this: anyone watching this, if you want guidance and support on this, just send me a text message with the word free stuff. Don't put your name on. Just send me a text message that says free stuff with your to the following number 07950 147 572, and I will send you 8 hours worth of training videos. There's no sales or anything, and it tells you how to do all this stuff. And as I said, don't even put your name, where you come from. I don't want to know, and I'll help you out. Anyway, let's get back to
amazing stuff. I think it's brilliant that you do that, Chris. Well done.
That's very kind. So again, let's just look. I mean, isn't it interesting? If you said to someone the sale fall through rate is lower than it was in 21 and 22, no one would have believed you, would they?
Yeah, frightening. Yeah, that's great though. That's really great. But again, that that 7-year average hides a multitude, doesn't it? It's kind of a bad guide over the last 7 years, because there's been so much of a roller coaster during that time. But you're right, if that's sitting below 21, 22, 23, I can definitely understand, but 21 and 22 is pretty good stuff.
Indeed. Let's now move on to net sales. And net sales is the number of, as I said, what we said before was the number of gross sales less your fall throughs this week is your net sales. And as Verona said, is that if the 2020 fell off the cliff, and ladies and gentlemen, that yellow line is the cliff. And we can see, there you go. It just is quite stark to see. And then she went up. Interestingly, again, isn't it fascinating? You can tell when Easter is by these dips. And this one here is always the Easter week. Sorry, Easter week. What am I talking about? What am I saying? August bank holiday.
August.
That's August. That's August bank holiday, and these are Easters.
Yeah.
Okay, and not only Easters, but you've also got some more bank holidays in May, haven't you? But yeah,
May bank holidays. You've got two. And we've also had it in amongst that. We had Jubilee, we had extended weekends for Jubilees and things like that. So yeah, we've had quite a bit of activity.
Yeah, so
we're nothing if not habitual in the property space.
So the pink line is 2023, and the average of 17 to 19 is the orange line. So you can see here that we are well above those. Obviously, we're not as much as 21 and 22, but I wouldn't expect us to, because they were not normal years. And what I would say, ladies and gentlemen, listening to this show is that all the graphs that you see on the show are available to download, okay, on a link on YouTube. You go to the description at the bottom, you can download all these graphs, and you can use them both internally and you can use them at your valuations. So I'm giving these to you. There's no cost. Use them each week on your valuations to make you look awesome, okay? All I ask is that you don't use them on social media, but you can use them at your valuations. You don't have to credit me to say who they're from at the top, but no one will listen to those. But download them and use them. Make yourself a property guru. Use this data, okay? Right. Year to date, we're on 95,000, nearest damn it, 200 net sales, which is 103.8% more than the 17, 18, and 19 average. And you quite clearly see here that we are a decent 15 or 16% ahead of 2023. But again, we had a poor start. Net sales, as I said, 19,920. Thoughts on net sales? Because this is what's going to pay us in the pipeline.
Yeah, I mean, this is the one that matters, right? And great gross sales are ahead of where they have been trending over the last normal years. Fall throughs are below what they've been trending at, and therefore net sales are also better, 103.8% of the 2017, 18, and 19 average, which is fantastic. And I guess not only does that mean we're selling property, it means that we are generating revenue for estate agents, but also it means that customer sentiment from a buyer's perspective is coming back. And that's the one thing that we really struggled with throughout 2023, particularly in the first half of 2023. Listings were very robust, but we didn't have enough buyers in the market. And getting more buyers in the market, again, something for you to talk about in the lounge, getting more buyers in the market, talking about the return. We're definitely seeing a return of the first-time buyer market. In small volumes, it's not where it used to be, but that's brilliant for the sector. And being able to talk about that will encourage more sellers to list. So it's a self-perpetuating prophecy. So buyers are incredibly important for us.
Good stuff. Right. A couple of graphs for you really data geeks. We've already kind of touched on this, but price changes as a percentage of listings. So in terms of the number of price changes versus the number of listings on a week standalone basis. So, we're at 52.87%. So you can say, well, that is quite decent because we were complaining that 1 in 8 was quite low. But it's still, I think, the way the market's moving, and again, it's what you're, as Verona rightly said, it's what you're listing and the type of property, especially the price range. Gross sales,
and also I think just on that point, Chris, I think this is a really opportune time now as we head into spring. We're coming through February, as I mentioned. There may be some stimulus in the budget. It's a really good opportune time to look back at the stock that perhaps was listed in Q4 last year, maybe even Q3. And some stock that is, sticky. Maybe it needs a refresh. Maybe it needs an updated marketing strategy. Now, we should all be doing that on a regular basis anyway. But I'm sure if we all look at our stock, there's opportunities for us to go back and refresh stock, readdress prices, and give our customers the best chance as we enter spring to sell their property.
Indeed. And what I would say to all the valuers and listers out there is, if there is going to be some form of stimulus, the people who are more likely to put their houses on the market are the ones that you've probably valued in the last 6 months that have just been holding back. And I find it fascinating that valuers are more concerned about the next one, like they're like a shark, and they're not worried about what the near miss is. And my advice to you is, why don't you do a Zoom call, okay? And do a solo Zoom call like this. I'm just going to show ladies and gentlemen this, and I'm going to choose a background, and I'm going to take a photograph of the property that I went to value. And you could go and get this off Street View, couldn't you? Okay. And just do, hi, Mr. and Mrs. Jones. It's Chris here from Chris Estate Agents. I just wanted to give you an updated valuation of where you stand in the marketplace and then just talk about the property. You could even go on, have a Rightmove link ready with the properties that they're on the market, that would be on the market against, and just do a screen share. Do that. You can just record it at the start, record it finish the recording. You don't have to edit it. It comes out of Zoom. Doesn't cost you a penny. You then swap that, move it across to WhatsApp, airdrop it on your phone, and then WhatsApp it across. And when it comes through, when it comes through to the people, there's a person, not a message saying, hi, how you doing? Because we're all going to ignore that. There's a person. If you live there, what are you going to do, Verona?
You're going to click on us straight away, 100%.
That's my house.
Yeah, exactly. What's all this about? 100%. I think that's a really simple and highly effective tip.
Indeed. Well, that's what I teach. That's one of the many things I teach my owners. But my job is to help letting and estate agents grow their businesses organically. And again, that's just one tiny little tip that we like to do. Also works really well on price reductions as well. Because when you try and get hold of them and they can't get there, then do a recorded Zoom call. Anyway, let's get back. Let's get back to. We don't want that picture of this house. Hold on a second. Choose version background. Okay, there you go. Right. Okay. So this is the same graph that we saw last week, but some of you might not watch the show. Oh, am I sharing it? I'm not sharing it. Oh dear.
No, you're not.
Come on, Christopher. Okay, so this is the number of properties that are in estate agent sales pipelines as we went into the 1st of Feb. I know we're filming this on Wednesday, the 14th of Feb, and it will be out on Friday, the 16th. But again, if you'd have asked most estate agents going into the 1st of Feb, how's your pipeline? Because we all stripped it all out at the end in December, like most agents do. You would say, well, it's not very good, but look at that. It's, back in 17, 18 and 19, it was hovering around the 280 mark, and it's 360.
Yeah, it's, as always, there's a balance with this. You don't want too much stock, but you certainly want enough stock to generate interest.
Right, so remember, this is not stock, this is properties in sales pipelines.
Oh, sorry, I was looking at the wrong graph.
Yeah.
So the 510 was the other one, which was stock.
510 is the number of
Exactly.
properties for sale. This is the agent's
Yeah.
pipeline, okay?
Too many graphs, Chris.
Don't worry. Well, it's a graph fest, but we're all data geeks. That's,
Exactly.
okay. And
Yeah. So pipelines. Yes.
let's go back to pipelines. I should change the color of those graphs, shouldn't I, therefore? Okay, I'll bad lad out.
That might help the more challenged of us, including myself. Again, considering the year that we've had, I think those pipelines are looking super, super healthy. But as always, we have the challenge of reducing that point of SSTC through to completion, and fall throughs are positive, great. So we just need to if every single agent in the country, it's probably their biggest challenge. And, I sit on the home buying selling group, and that is a brilliant, brilliant organization that's doing a huge amount of work at the minute, not only on this, but on things like material information, upfront information, and helping agents to navigate that space. So there's lots of work happening in that space, but until we can reduce that time down, then this will be the most nervous part of any estate agent's job.
I mean, ladies and gentlemen, those of you who are in your 20s that watch this, when Verona and I were obviously you're still a spring chicken, Verona, but when I didn't
Sadly
have
not.
hair, and roll the clock back 20 years, and a long exchange was 8 to 9 weeks. I jest you not, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, exactly.
A long exchange was 8 to 9 weeks, and now it's 19 weeks. Unbelievable.
But to that point, Chris, my mortgage interest rate for the first property that I bought was also 11.5%. And that, so there, that timestamps how old I am as well. But the point of it is, right, the dynamic shift all the time. But this getting longer is far from ideal.
And what I would say is that certain things, two things, I'm not going to mention any firms, but reservation agreements will bring your fall through rates into single digits.
Yeah.
In that, ladies and gentlemen, you don't get that vendor kicking off because of half a tank of oil, or they're taking the paving slabs. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
You get none of that. Okay. So do seriously consider reservation agreements. They are fantastic. There's a number of firms out there. And the other one, which I'm particularly a big fan of, is outsourced sales progression.
That's becoming.
Okay. The outsourced sales progression, they do it on average 11 weeks. So, just bear that in mind.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's a great thing about this sector, right? The minute there is a problem, there is a supplier ready and willing to solve that problem. And if you're there, we know there is an increase in the number of self-employed estate agencies, independent businesses running smaller boutique type businesses. Brilliant opportunities to outsource that type, because if you don't have the scale that you can do it in-house, absolutely outsource some of that stuff. Indeed. Highly recommended.
Okay, so we mentioned this week, but some of you might have not watched it, and this is there are different opinions on this one, but what is particularly interesting is that the pound per square foot at sale agreed will match the exchange levels with a 5 or 6 month drag, which then in turn will match the land registry 3 or 4 months after the exchange. If I mapped the land registry, so ignore the red line, which is new listings. The pound per square foot at sale agreed is the orange line. The green line is exchanged. If I then put on the land registry and moved it by the same percentages up and down, they all match within around an 80 or 90% correlation rate using the Pearson's correlation coefficient. Oh, check me out with my stats.
Very impressive.
Okay, the bottom line is, ladies and gentlemen, is that you can foretell what's going to happen to the land registry figures 8 or 9 months in advance by tracking the sold subject to contract pound per square foot figure.
Are they asking you to consult, Chris?
No.
Maybe they should.
I've just got one of these brains that spots patterns, a bit like a Rain Man. Yeah. Okay.
Love a pattern. Yeah.
Okay. And it is, and you can see the match between if you mentally moved the green line,
the green to the right, yeah, exactly. You'll see,
or the orange to the right. But, you will notice that there is quite a high correlation rate. I haven't put the land registry on there, but I've done it manually myself. And the correlation is really, really good. If you've got to move the land registry back about 9 months, which sounds about right, but it is right, the correlation is really, really high. And this can foretell. So you could, some people say, well, this is not going to take into account flats and things like this. Pound per square foot on a town by town basis, I've tried it, doesn't work particularly well. But when we're dealing with 100,000 sales or a month,
big data.
It does work. It does work. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So we've just about finished the national stuff. Is there anything you want to do before we go and look at sunny Salisbury?
No, I think just to maybe summarize to say that all in all, I think where we're trending after the first 6 weeks of the year, both at the top of the funnel in terms of listings, but also in pipelines, sell-through rates, and SSTCs, all really strong. However, my only call outs would be is just review of sticky stock that's been on for a while, price changing, and also getting as accurate as possible the listing price to give you the best chance for it not to become sticky stock further on down the line. So yeah, pricing is for me the only real call out, but the rest of it is looking pretty positive, I would say. And I guess the final thing just to add would be the expertise that we talked about, finding out more about what's going on in your space using the data that you've talked about, but also then from the wider parts of the sector in terms of mortgage interest rates, what's happening in the lender space, etc.
Thank you very much, Verona. Right then, let us now go and look at Salisbury. So as always, we use the wonderful bit of kit called 20EA Insight. Ladies and gentlemen, 20EA Insight is a software package by the firm 20EA. They have many platforms, one of which is called Insight. They do not pay me to mention this bit of kit. I know myself and Verona, we're a bit of fanboys and fangirls of it. But basically, this is Rightmove Plus on steroids with a couple of Saturn V rockets strapped to it with lasers and glitter balls. This is data coming off the scale. Believe there is a free package for this that you can use, which has limited amount of data, but still has data. And then you pay them some shekels, then they do give you access on a town by town basis, depending on, and the more towns you have, the bigger you have. But the bottom line is this, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to Salisbury. The thing is this, whether you are in Salisbury or not, watch this part and see this software in action, because it will show you how to get more valuations, more listings at higher fees, and prove that your competition are overvaluing to get business. It's that powerful. So let us dive in. We're going to be going to Salisbury, and as always, the way we do this, ladies and gentlemen, is I talk, and then Verona, you just come straight in at any time if you have anything you want to ask. So you should be able to see the on site at the moment, and the first thing we are looking at, let's go and find, there we are, this is the one that we want. I'll just make that a little bit bigger, hold on a second, there we go. Right, so for the purposes of this, for the purposes of, pardon me, people watching, the postcodes that we are looking at is SP1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 inclusive. Okay, there was some whether we should put SP6 in. I took the decision that though that was more of a that wasn't mainly a Salisbury postcode. You might agree or disagree, but that's what I've decided. And we are looking at data from the 1st of January 2019 all the way through until yesterday, which was the 13th of February. And the first thing that we're looking at is new instructions. And we can quite clearly see here on this graph here, it shows you the different years and the number of instructions that you had. What we're going to do is we are going to have a look at these and then compare each agent on their new instructions, and then we will dive down. So the average value of a property that's come on the market in the last 6 and a bit years is £408,000. And we're going to nail down these. And again, ladies and gentlemen, look, there's your pound per square foot figure. And if you change the price, the date range, you can have a look. So let's start off with Carter and May. Carter and May, as you can see here from 2019, we're hovering around the 7 or 8% mark. And again, as I said, it's a bit spiky, but you can fundamentally see they're going in an upwards general trend direction to around the 11 or 12% mark. Now, Carter May, I've never met them, but I've spoken with Charlie a few times at various events. What an absolute little star he is. Yeah, just a passionate estate agent. As I said, just liaised with him on a number of occasions. That's a decent
I
market.
don't know the business, but that's a brilliant story. I mean, just looking at the data, that's a really great story. It's a business who's clearly market leader in their postcodes, and you can see that if you took a straight line through that trend line from 2019, they're on an upward trajectory. Clearly had ups and downs like every business has, but that suggests to me a really solid and upwardly mobile business, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, again, what you tend to find there, it says it says the 1st of December, but that is actually really the whole of December.
Exactly. Yeah.
What that's screaming to me, probably, I don't know, but what's that screaming to me is they held it back and put everything on in January, and you can quite clearly say that they were the daddy-o agent, 13%.
Yeah, 13%. Yeah.
Interestingly, their average asking price of property on the market is 336, as you can see in the screen there. The average price.
Yeah.
The average price for the whole of Salisbury is 408, so they obviously are a lower to middle agent, which is what I expect.
And if you look at the property count by price brand, you can see that 250 to 300 is also the highest sort of price bracket, albeit a little bit in 4 to 5 as well. So yeah, so it's interesting. They clearly play in the middle market, but I guess that's where the volume will be.
Connells look like they've hovering around the 6% mark. Obviously, they're having their spikes, and I bet you those spikes are the Boxing Day. Let's have a look. Oh yeah, look at that. That's Boxing Day as well. Is that
And Boxing Day again?
And that's a Boxing Day. And we got another one there. Oh, there's
you can pinpoint a business strategy by the data, right?
Okay, so you can tell here that those spikes are Boxing Day spikes. Interestingly, I did an exercise, Verona, where I actually looked at, for the last few years, what Connell Sequence have done with their Boxing Day and whether it affected their business in November and January and also February. Now, interestingly, up until the Christmas Day, their market share was atrocious, but then obviously holding it back for Boxing Day. If you look at the month as a whole in pure isolation, normally the top 30 estate agents in the UK will take, on average, 28 or 29% of the UK property market's listings. And that number has remained pretty standard and pretty consistent for the last 4 or 5 years. Okay. Interestingly, when Connell Sequence, when they take everyone else is in the top 25 or top 30, never changes. So that Boxing Day bounce, they're taking off small independent agents. They're not taking it off agents like you. I don't know if you spot that, but you know me, I'm a bit of a data geeky person.
Yeah.
That is the thing. So that Boxing Day is not hurting people like you and the big other boys and girls. It's actually hurting independent agents. Now,
interesting.
Is Boxing Day a good idea, marketing idea? My opinion, I think it's a great idea because, let's be honest, no one's going to wants them going around when they've got the Christmas decks up. So I think it's a great idea. I know there's a lot of some agents say, "Woo, it's a con." It's not a con. It's just a marketing technique. You didn't think of it.
Absolutely. And you know, different parts of the country and for different businesses, we've got some agents who absolutely adopt it consistently every year, and we've got some agents who don't. And I think, you know, going back to the point about independent agents, Chris, some of that will be some of the small independents make a decision, actually, I'm having Christmas off with my family and I'll do something different. And the same with our self-employed agents. Whatever works for your business, I think in the end, it is a marketing ploy, but there is some evidence to suggest that it does work for a period of time at least.
There you go, because we are in the marketing game.
Exactly.
Right.
Just on the point of Connells there, their average price point is lower still. So their average price point is 288.
Interesting. Well spotted there. Go look at White's, 355. So they're still below the average. Okay, they seem to be going in an upward direction. Well done, Whites.
Yeah.
Oliver Chandler. Again, they seem to be going up. So
similar trend. Yeah.
I like that. Boat Rights. Okay, well, sorry guys, looks like you're dropping. Okay, Fox and Sons, which again are part of common sequence. Again, let's just have a go. Spikes.
Yeah.
Yay! There you go. Good to go. Simon Colligan. Let's just have a look. You seem to be pretty average, guys. Looks like you've had a good couple of months recently. Well done, guys.
Yeah.
Hamptons. You seem to be going.
As predicted, average price point near the top of their bracket. Yeah.
Indeed. Okay. Woolley and Wallace. What a great name that is. Oh, you seem to be doing quite well.
That's a great name.
Okay. Goadspears, which are a reach. Oh, again, they seem to be slightly higher at 548. We will do the upper quartile in a second. Okay. We've got Goadspears. Seems to be treading water around 4%. Nice one, guys. McKillpop and Gregory. Okay. Middleton and Major. Savills. Okay, a good week. Vedintum, I like that one.
That's a great name.
Jordans. Okay,
Jordans.
yeah, Purple Bricks. Again, quite expected. Interestingly,
Yeah.
Purple Bricks market share started to grow in the last couple of months. Isn't that interesting? So there you go.
Well,
Keep an eye on them. Keep an eye on them in Verona. I know there's
I'll keep one eye on them.
right. Okay, so let's have a look. Verona and I have gone back years, and so I can be a bit cheeky, but right.
Of course you can.
Okay, let's have a look at the upper quartile just before we move. Okay, there's UMO, guys. James, nice lad. Liaised with him a few times. Let's just have a quick look and see you move. Again, decent marketing. Guys, I would expect a bit more growth on that one. So we'll just have a quick look. See,
Pretty flat, really. Yeah.
Okay, Charters. They're more of a they're more of a Winchester-based agent. So whether that's just something in the villages, I don't know. Platinum's
High price point though, 685
well,
average price point.
we're going to look at the upper quartile. So how do we
Yeah.
find the upper quartile? There's 14,000 there. So we need around 3,500 before then we'll find the upper quartile. Let's have a look. Here we go. Okay, upper
Here we
quartile.
go. Yeah,
Let's go to 600. Oh, man, that's interesting. Right, so the upper quartile starts at 500,000. Okay. And it's quite obvious here that Hamptons are the big daddy-os.
yeah.
And the mummy-os. We've got to be balanced. Hampton. Okay, so let's just look at Hamptons and see what you guys slightly drifting downwards. Let's look at Savs, see what they've been doing. No, not bad, guys. William Wallace and Middleton and Major. Okay, so there's no one really pulling trees up here. Carter and May, obviously, well, they just dipped in, but again, not the around the 500, 600 mark. Again, my advice to you, Carter and May, is if you are going to go into that upper range, probably a different brand. If you do want to dip into that, but then why would you? I mean, that's a balance set. You could go and open a second branch, but then you've got the problem of second branches. Do remember
Absolutely.
do remember there's only two ways you should open up a second branch. You leave an equity partner in the existing one, and you go to the new one if you're the business driver, or you have a mini me and you leave the mini me back at the office, and you go and open up. You go and open the other one, not the other way around. I've seen it happen so many times in my 30 years. And remember, your existing one will tread water, no matter what you say, put a mini me in. So
it's interesting when we're just talking about the second conference. It's a very similar thing to the second album, a second office. It's the same thing. You won't get the same level of. It's just a different environment, isn't it? It's a very different setup. You don't go into it with the naivety that you went into the first one. But you have to also give it the same level of passion. Otherwise, it's a challenge.
Indeed. This is just level of stock levels. And again, we're not going to look at individuals because stock levels are going to match very much listings. But it is quite interesting to see here. And we're not in February at the moment because we're looking at the average stock level cumulatively throughout the month. And so we'll just go and have a look at January. So, in 2022, in the postcode, 648 properties for sale. And by the end of Jan, an average of 1,058. So you can see here that there is almost a 40% uplift in the number of properties sale So again, this is the power of stats. So if you're going up against, what's happened in the property market, Mrs. Miggins, there's 40% more properties for sale today than there were 2 years ago, which means buyers have a greater chance, which means to you that you have to be more realistically priced compared to your competition, which are the other properties. So we'll just have a quick look at that. Okay, so let's now, anything on here before we go move on to my favorite screen?
No, I was just going to say the next screen for me will also really massively help. That price achieved, as well as this data here, I think is where it really differentiates agent by agent.
Okay, so we were looking here between the 24th of November 21 and the 13th of February 2024. We can move this if we wanted to, but what I would say, okay, so I'll tell you what, let's do it exactly a year. Okay, there we go. So that's the 13th of Jan. God, too worry. The 13th of February 23 to the 13th of February 2024. Now, isn't it interesting that most estate agents, when they were presented with this information, they would look at the new instruction level and the fact that, Carter and May have had a market share of 10.37% in terms of market share. And also they'd look at this data here, sold subject to contract and the sold subject to contract ratio. But ladies and gentlemen, that's not where the data is. And again, if you're going to use it, this is gold. Now, Verona and I, we're data geeks, okay? But the real gold is here, exchanged and withdrawn, okay? Look, here we go. If I was Carter May, out of all the properties that have left my agency in the last year, which is because you can only leave a property only leaves an agency's book for 2 reasons. 1, she exchanges. 2, she withdraws. Fall throughs, not leaving your agency, they get recycled in the machine, okay? Carter and May have exchanged contracts on 74.73% of the properties that have left their books, okay? While White's are at 59 and Connell's are at 54. So if I just put into a calculator 74.73 divided by 54.11, that's 38% more, which means if I was Carter May and going up against Connell's, I could say, Mrs. Miggins, if you put your house on the market with Connell's, you will have a 11 out of 20, because that's 54%, chance of moving. With me, 3 out of 4, which means that if you choose Connell's, not calling them in any way, shape or form, you have a 38% chance, lower chance of moving home than you do with me. That's stuff, isn't it?
Gold dust. Absolutely gold dust.
This is independent. There was... But again, if we look nationally, Verona, and I know you guys must use this, you and also another well-known non-geographical agent have some of the highest percentages in the UK compared to French-based networks. So no, you use this. I think, again, feedback, could use it more, is that
agreed.
You have a greater chance of moving people. And we are in the market to not market houses. We're in the market to get people moved. And again, this is powerful independent data. I told you it would be Rightmove Plus on steroids with rockets attached to it. So this
data here demonstrates why Carter and May are top of their tree, because they may well be using this data in the lounge. They're the market leader in their area. Fantastic data on success rate on a 75% exchange rate, and a significantly lower than average withdrawal rate. So, that's absolutely, they're clearly a very well-run business, but great data. If they're not using it, they could be even better.
I mean, let's just look at price change. And again, so the average, so just so you're aware, ladies and gentlemen, the average for the last year is 55.63. So if you were above 55, you're above the Salisbury average. If you're below, then obviously you're below. And you can see, we'll just have a quick look at the different agencies in there. And you can see there is a huge amount of difference there. Now, we will just have a quick look at the upper quartile in a second, because those who deal with the posh end, the propensity to sell is lower. So we will come and have a look at you in a second, ladies and gentlemen. But just have a quick look. Fox and Sons, which are a corporate estate agent, not calling them in any way, reduced the price on 67, nearly 7 out of 10 properties they put on the market, they reduced the price. Okay. Now, again, we're going to go through to the next screen and actually see if that makes any difference in the terms of whether they overvalue and actually how close they get to the original asking price. But there's some, 42% of properties do actually.
But I can't help but draw a correlation there between that Fox and Sons one. So 67% price changes. And if you then look at their exchange rate, it's less than 50%, it's 46%. So you've got a less of a 1 in 2 chance of exchanging.
There's got to be a link there, hasn't there?
There's got to be a link.
Okay. Interestingly, again, we just have a look at this. When I say this year, that's the last 12 months compared to months 12 to 24. And we can see here that Woolley and Wallace have been growing at the greatest rates. Carter and May at 11%, which again is not bad considering they're the number one agent. And again, if you go and look back at my YouTube channel, we do a different town each week. Quite often, the number one agent. So again, I must come back to Carter and May with Charlie and Jake is. Normally, that's really good. The number one agent, has one of the highest exchange to listings rate.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this is not just volume. This is actually they are fulfilling their customer needs, which
Good
is
stuff.
great.
Nice one, Charlie and Jake. Right, keep coming back to them. Never met Jake.
Me neither. They're doing a great job.
Doing a great job. Right, okay, let's just have a quick look at the upper quartile, which I think we said was 500,000 upwards. So we'll just go and have a look and see if that does make a massive difference. Here we go. There we go. I'm just going to keep it. I'm going to go probably for the top 15% because it just accentuates the posh end of the market. And we can quite clearly see here that in the upper quartile, we have quite a. Actually, I tell you what. No, I'm going to keep it. No, hold on. Yeah, make my mind up. My wife says, "You will never make your mind up." Okay. Right. So that's it. Up 750 upwards, and that's the figures from 600. Let's keep it. I'll just leave it there for a second, just those you can watch. But we're just gonna. You can pause the screen. Let's go back. 750,000 upwards, and you quite clearly see here that Savills, Woolley and Wallace, and Hamptons are in terms of new instructions, but if we look at the exchange ratios, we've got quite a wide band here. Remembering here that in the last year, properties that have left agents book over 750,000, 45.64 of exchange contracts.
But just look at Carter and May. Just sorry, I feel like a bit of a fangirl of Carter and May now. Look at their exchange rate on the higher priced properties, the top quartile, 71%, which totally flies in the face what everybody would tell you who plays in that space. So, again, great job, guys.
Indeed, and I'd probably be using that in terms of moving your brand. And again,
in that direction, yeah.
And what I would say is this: there's a couple of brands that you can buy in. Finding Countries One, In Design or By Design. Yes, By Design. They again, those are posh licenses that you can buy on and bolt onto your businesses. Again, fans of both of those brands and what they offer. But there's quite a mix there. And it's quite nice to see Savills up there because normally Savills are quite, they're not normally one of the best agents when it comes to exchange ratios in many locations, but that is really good for Savills.
60%. Yeah. Really
well done on that one. That's good. William Wallace, again, we said they were a posh agent, but again at 51. Hamptons at 45. So okay, interesting. Right. Okay, we've now move on and let's look at how the prices have achieved. Again, ladies and gentlemen, this is for those of you that don't like spreadsheets, you might be switching off, but there is absolute gold in here if you are an estate agent and you're trying to prove that you have a higher, you're worth a fee. So the way that it works is this. In the last 12 months, 20 EA have looked at all the 296 properties that Carter and May have put on the market and done an automated valuation model on those properties, like a Valpal figure. Other AVMs are available. And they've done the same for all of the properties. What they've then done is looked at what you actually put the house on the market for. And the difference between the two is what we call this percentage over the AVM model. So if they thought it was worth £500,000 and you put it on for £600,000, then that is a 20% difference. So that's a 20% gap. Now, interestingly, Carter and May, 0.81. So that's showing me Carter and May and Whites are valuing really tight. They're not overvaluing.
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting that Fox and Sons at 0.35 over asking what they think the property's worth, which again, weren't they the ones that had a price reduction ratio of nearly
They
60%?
absolutely they did 67%. Yeah.
Okay. And isn't it, that is quite nice to see. Normally, I would expect the big agents. And again, look at Connell's. That's really good. Well done, guys. Less than 1%. Again, in terms of the way, normally that figure can be slightly higher with that firm, depending on, but that's really good, nice and tight. What you then do is then they look at what did you achieve from the original asking price? Okay. So here, on average, Carter May achieved 2.41% off the original asking price, not the reduced price. Okay. Fox and Sons 4% below the original asking price, but we know they overvalue compared to the competition. It's not a criticism. These are the stats. But again, there's some other numbers down here. But again, we're looking at the big boys and girls here. So to work out that, you just take one away from the other. But people don't like percentages. They prefer pound notes. So basically, to make it nice and easy for you, on the doorstep, you show this screen to the punters and say, right, if every agent put on a 450 grand house, what would they achieve for it? And Carter and May would get 439,900. Whites would get 437,500. Connells would get 444. Oliver Chandler 435. So again, if I was Carter and May and I was up against Oliver Chandler, I would be saying to you, Mrs. Miggins, yes, they will get independent data 435,900, which is 4,200 less than the running average, whilst we will get 439,950, which again is slightly below the average. However, and you take them back to the screen here, yes, you might lose, say, 100 quid compared to my competitors, but I'm more likely to get you sold as well. So
You get a greater chance of selling. Yeah.
Yes. So it's a balancing act between chances of selling and price achieved.
And that is the art of estate agency, right? It's about what's your goals? Do you want to sell within what time frame, and how important is the price achieved to you? And getting that cocktail together to achieve, to list at the right price that's going to achieve all of those goals, not just one of them.
Indeed, and let's just look at here. We've got Hamptons will get 16 grand more than the running average. So that's good. They didn't do so well on some of the other stats, but they did really well on that. And then William Wallace, again, they're getting 10 grand more than the running. So again, you take the data which matches your story and push it out there. You can see why I love this data, but to most estate agents, they would just look at this spreadsheet and go, oh my God, now I do know 20EA do this other thing where they take the data and make it look pretty. But what I would say to you is this, is if you have this product, and again, we are both fanboys and fangirls of this, if you explain it the way I explain it, the punters will get it. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But also, you don't need to have all of this data to blindside the customer. You just simplify it in 2 or 3. Compare yourself to your competitors in the same way you would show them comparable properties with some of the key data, and make it really simple for them to understand, which gives them very little option about where else they can go, because you're making the arguments so compelling.
My advice to you, though, ladies and gentlemen, would be to have it on 2 screens. Take the data and simplify it, but then cover your backside by having the next screen afterwards. Okay, that's important.
Yeah,
and remember
this is the science.
Okay, this is the science behind it. They might not understand it, but you can quite clearly say, look, Mrs. Miggins, because if you are ever challenged, you've got your backup. And what I would say is do this every month, but save your presentation in case you are challenged. Okay. Okay. Right. Okay. Absolutely fantastic stuff. Let's move on. How quickly do the agents sell their properties? And we quite clearly see it. So the blue line here is how long from new instruction to sale agreed. And the pink line is from sale agreed to completion. And you can quite clearly see here that Carter's...
It's a full house for Carter and May.
Okay. And as you go through there, so again, Connell's, if you look at Connell's, from new instruction to completion, 196 days, with Carter and May, 156 days. That's telling me that they do run a really tight ship on their sales progression.
Absolutely.
Again, bigger agent, dealing with bigger houses, they're going to take longer to sell.
More complexity, yeah.
Sometimes some agents don't whack the sold on it, and their sale agreed to completion is much shorter, because what's the solicitors are interested, they're not putting the sold sticker on.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem to be. They're all pretty similar. So I don't think Savills are doing that. So I just think that's particularly interesting. Anything else before we go and look at the rentals?
Just click on the last year data to see if there's any significant change. You can just click on that big button. Yeah. Interesting. So Carter, so if you look at the time from new instruction to SSTC was obviously quite a lot shorter last year, as we know. But the period then from SSTC to completion has there's not significant change in that. I would say it's just the part of it's just the new instruction to SSDC, but clearly Carter and May have improved this year versus last year. So they were number 2 last year, and they've improved to number 1.
Yeah, if interesting,
good progress.
This scale is dynamic, and if you actually look, and again, it looks like we're becoming Carter and May fanboys and girls here, but they've hardly changed. It's just that everyone else has
in
got
total. Yeah.
So there you go. Well, we're getting the t-shirt. Okay.
We are. I know it's a bit sad.
Okay, we're now looking at lettings. Okay, this is the final screen, ladies and gentlemen. Not so much to tell on this one because again, you're recycling the properties that are coming on the market. But I think it's just important just to have a look and just see a flavour. And you can see here that whites seem to be the market agent here. Interestingly, open rent, only 4%. A lot of locations, they're number 1 and around 15 to 20.
Absolutely.
So it looks like open rent have not got a hold on in the town, in the city, sorry. So that's whites, that's Bassett's, okay. Fox and Sons, okay. Again, I'd take a slight pinch of salt with this because let's be honest, most of it is down to whether the tenant hands their notice in, not whether you're getting new landlords. Yeah, I mean, I think we really can't comment on this. Well, Carter May, looks like you seem to be growing your lettings business. Well done, guys. Again, I think we need to be sending our t-shirt sizes in.
Yeah, I think we need to send them a little bottle of champagne to say well done.
Okay, Middleton and Major. Okay, Connells. Let's see what Connells are doing. Yeah, not bad, guys. Northwoods, Boatwright.
What's the trend on open rent, Chris? Were they ever big in Salisbury? It'd be interesting to see the trend. Whether it's
they are growing.
So they're actually increased. So maybe they're reasonably new in the space then. So yeah, you guys 1 to 6 need to be aware of what they're doing and make sure you compete on a local level.
Yeah, because
with that,
open rent really nationally have really more than doubled in the last few years. So just be aware of that. Landlords are not leaving the business; they're just not giving them to you. And again, your job is to prove value. You know, when was the last time you sat down with your landlord face to face with a cup of coffee and said, is your investment meeting your expectations?
Yeah, because open rent will not be doing that.
Well, I would say most agents don't do that. They just only ring up the landlord when there's a problem. Again, I can't stress that. As I said, my job, ladies and gentlemen, is to help especially letting agents attract landlords, but it does help bring in homeowners as well. But my job is to help letting agents attract landlords organically using various different marketing techniques and techniques that you can do proactively. And one of them is to talk to landlords, sit them down with them and talk, because what I would say is this: most of the landlords with a few properties have probably got a few other properties with other agents because they like to spread their risk of it. Again, if you can talk to them about their portfolio, you know, I jokingly say they're more likely to tell you their PIN number than they are how many properties they have in their portfolio.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Let's leave it. Let's leave Salisbury at that. I hope, ladies and gentlemen, you found that of use of you in Salisbury. But those of you who are not in Salisbury, do have a look at the software. You can see why Verona and myself are absolute fanboys and fangirls of it. It looks at it, and again, it enables you to see where you can improve, but also get you more listings at higher fees. Verona, as always, you've been an absolute legend. Ladies and gentlemen, you can see why we invite Verona on the show on a regular basis. She knows her stats. She's absolutely spot on. Final thoughts for UK estate agents going into the rest of February.
So I think we all have a responsibility to fly the flag of positivity. At some point, someone's going to have to call the bottom of this. Why should it not be us? Why should we not say that the worst is now over us and that we have a much more positive future ahead of us? We've all got so much in our local areas that we can talk about positively, and that will create a more positive momentum. And some of the stories that we just touched on, by not knowing those businesses, not knowing that town at all, is phenomenal. So, you know, get your data, be experts, be positive. We have loads of positivity to look forward to this year.
Indeed, the Property Academy, which is the Peter Knight's fantastic organisation, do I think I've got a report here somewhere. Let's just have a quick look. No, I haven't got it here. Do a guide each week where each year where they interview 10,000 estate agent, 10,000 vendors, and 36% of people who put their house on the market chose their agent because of their knowledge of the local property market. How do you prove that? By using data like this.
Absolutely.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Verona, exceptional as always. Thank you very much for your time and effort.
Thank you for having me.
I know you do enjoy doing them, so it's even better.
I love the stats.
I look forward to seeing you at the Women in Estate Agency Conference. Do check that out on Google. What date is it in March?
7th of March, Thursday, 7th of March. And today is the final day for the early bird tickets. I know this is going out on Friday, isn't it?
On Friday,
but
so
there will still be tickets. There will still be tickets available. So please check us out.
it's not much more, ladies and gentlemen, so don't you worry about that.
No, it's not. It's not.
It's a wonderful thing. You don't have to be a woman to go. You can be a man, and I think you'll learn an awful lot.
We would love more men to attend. Definitely love more men.
And on that note, thank you, Verona, but more importantly, thank you for watching the show. I like to do it every single week. It does take many hours to put it together, but it helps me, and if it helps you as well, then we're all a winner. So thank you for your time today, and I'll see you next week.